All right, so that's the input to the master method. Okay, so this is what the master method expects, a recurrence satisfying this format. So what is the output of the master method? The output of the master method is just an answer. It just tells you what the recurrence evaluates to. Okay? And there are three cases. And the fact that there are three cases, as we'll see, is fundamental. Okay? So again, this is the compilation step. Okay, so we feed in a recurrence, which is defined recursively. And so it's hard to reason about directly. We don't really know what the running time of the algorithm is. And the master method will compile it into something that will tell us unequivocally what really is the running time, or an upper bound on the running time of this algorithm for every value of n. And here's what it is. Okay, so there's three cases. And what governs which case we're in, and we'll again talk a lot about why this is so. What really matters is the relative size of A. So remember, we have these three constants, A, B, and D. And it matters whether they're the same or if one is bigger than the other, in which case it matters which one is bigger. Okay? So that's what triggers the three different cases. Right? So exactly one of these three will apply. In the first case, and again, remember we're told the recurrence is you do n to the d work outside of the recursive calls, and then you recurse a times on problems that are a factor b smaller than before. So in the first case, the running time is n to the d, same d as over there, log n. In the second case, the running time is simply n to the d. And in the third case, which initially seems kind of funky, but again by the end, I think you'll agree that there's no way it could be anything other than this, is big O, of n raised to the log base b of A. Log base b of A. Okay. Any handwriting questions at this stage? Yeah.
Is that log base 2 is right?
Good question. So what's up with the logs? Good question. Good question. I'm treating the logs in different ways. There's two logs on the right-hand side of the board. One, I didn't even write down a base. That's how little I seem to care. The other one, not only did I write down log base b, I kept rewriting the b over and over and over again to make sure it was clear, even on the camera. Okay? So why is there this asymmetry in my attention to detail with the two logs?
The book said the base of the log doesn't matter. But I guess it does sometimes.
Good. The base of the log doesn't matter, except it does sometimes. That's correct. And let me give you something more helpful, which is, so here's a true fact, okay, which is context insensitive, which is if you have log of one base and log of a different base, the bases are both constant, so say log base 2 and log base 10, those two functions are different, of course, right? One is how many times you divide by 10 to get down to 1. One is how many times you divide by 2 to get to 1. But the two logarithm functions differ always by only a constant factor. Okay, so log base 2 is always going to be something like a little bit larger than 3 times log base 10 of a given number. So if you switch from one logarithm function to another logarithm function, where both bases are constants, you're changing the number by a constant. Okay, so that's always true. Now, given that fact, let's look at where these logarithms appear in these expressions and try to understand why we can be flippant about one of them and need to be anal about the other. Okay? You want to say something? Or you want to answer the question? Or? Okay. So hopefully many of you see the answer to the question, which is, well, you know, if it's not in the exponent, so on top, when it's just n to the d times log n, As we vary the constant base of that log, we're varying the leading constant in the big O notation. And as we discussed on Thursday, and as you've seen probably in the past, the big O notation suppresses constants. Now, as we vary the base in the exponent, right, so basically, as we vary the base of the log, we're going between terms like 2n log n and 4n log n. Both of those are equally well big O of n log n. As we vary this base, we might be changing this expression between n squared and n to the fourth, right, because that's in the exponent. And our non-example from Thursday showed that actually, you cannot just play around willy-nilly with exponents, and that is not invariant in the big O notation. Okay? So it's an excellent comment. All right, so logs and exponents, keep track of the base. This is a rule of thumb. Logs that are not in the exponents, don't worry about the bases. You don't even really have to write it down in the homework if it's just sort of like that. If it's in a big O notation. Yeah.
This applies even when you're dealing with polynomials, not exponential growth. You want to be careful about exponents with logarithms.
Could you rephrase the question maybe? I don't quite understand it.
Here it's n to some number that is a constant, although it's not. So it's a polynomial time as opposed to something like a constant to some.
I see. Right. So you're saying, yeah, that's correct. So ultimately, what you need to figure out is, does the base of the log give me asymptotically distinct expressions or not? And if it does, then you got to keep track of the base. If it doesn't, you don't got to keep track of the base. So you can come up with more complicated situations where it turns out the base of the log doesn't matter, like you just did. But so I wanted to just give the simplest rule of thumb. Okay. Other questions? So that log on the top is whatever log you want, as long as the base is constant. Think of it as log 2. That's fine. And this log is really log base b. Okay.
I'd like to merge stuff in the division by 2 that gave us that 2, right?
Yeah, so this is true. So I will drop, basically, I'm going to prove this for you next. And I will definitely keep track of the analog of that 2. So that 2 is b in this context. And I'll keep track as long as it's relevant. And you're absolutely right, it is relevant. Okay, but at the very end, in one of the cases, it's no longer relevant. Okay, so you're seeing the end product where I've done the sort of glossing over. Okay, but it's legit. I mean, this is correct, and the proof will be correct. Okay, so I'll keep around enough information so it's not cheating. But nope, keep me honest. It's good. Other questions? Handwriting questions? Yeah?
Do you have to be an integer?
No. Usually it will be, but not always, and no, it does not. That's a good question. It should be non-negative. I should have said that. So D should be non-negative. B also does not have to be an integer. A, if you think about it, just by definition will be an integer. Other questions?
You want to be super careful up there as well when we put log base b.
That's what the answer is going to be. Yeah, but again, I want to focus on the forest, not the trees. But if you're feeling like you want some extra precision, it's a b that would belong there. All right. So I mean, one question I would expect you to have is kind of like, what is this thing? It's sort of, where does this come from? And again, if I do my job well, I really hope to demystify the master method for you. And I hope at the end of this lecture, or at least after you review the lecture notes afterwards, you'll look at this and you'll be like, almost in a snobby way, what else could it be? Okay? That's really how I hope you feel a little bit later.